Hello, hello. My name is Chrissie Hodges, and I am here today live at Mental Health and the Mighty. Thank you so much, Mental Health and the Mighty, for having me here and getting to talk about my perspective on mental health every single month. I really appreciate that. I'm someone with lived experience. I'm also a professional and a certified peer support specialist here in the state of Colorado, and I work with people all over the world. Um, and I also do referral consultations for individuals to help them find therapists who work with OCD. I'm the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and I'm the co-founder of Ocd Peers. Right there. It's ocdpeers.com, and we run peer support groups almost every single day of the week, except for Saturday right now, to help support you in your journey toward recovery if you have OCD and anxiety. And today I wanted to introduce you to the newest member of my house. This is Oliver. His name is Oliver Baxter. Oliver Baxter Hodges hyphenated McClymans. My last name, my husband's last name, and then his first and middle name. So Oliver, we got him he's a French bulldog. You see those ears. We got him about a little over 2 weeks ago. So he's around 10 weeks old right now. And he is just so much fun. I haven't had a puppy in about 12 years. We have an older French bulldog, and geez, I forgot how hard it is to have a puppy. Um, hi. um, it is so I've made the choice to not have kids. And so I have dogs and a cat, and my husband has a stepson. I'm sorry, my husband has a son. So technically I have a stepson, but um, I'm going to tell you something before I get into my topic. I have this is the first time ever in my life. I'm 44 years old. The first time I've ever really felt like domesticated. We picked up this dog, and the breeder, they're really sweet people. The dogs are just amazing dogs. And she dropped him off with some raw food. I've only fed my dogs hard food. So I was like, well, this is interesting. And so for the first week, I would feed him the raw food and then put his food in and mix it in. And I decided, well, why don't I just, so I looked up, I wanted to keep feeding them or I wanted to feed him that food. And then I wanted to integrate my older Frenchie onto it. And I went to look for food that was raw and natural. And oh my God, it is so expensive. I was like, I can't do that. Like I've got no. So I just started looking at all the ingredients, and it's all like natural food, and really just a lot of the vegetables and fruit and stuff that I would pick up at the grocery store anyway for us to eat. So I thought, well, I'll buy like one or two more of each, and then I'll cook for them every week, right? And so it's so embarrassing. I don't even know who I am, but like for a couple weeks, I make a big crock pot of vegetables that are safe for dogs because I've done the research, and I mix it in with their hard food, and I even give them like fruit in the afternoons. I don't, but it's like the first time I've ever really felt like I'm taking care of something. I mean, not really the first time because I've had two dogs in my life that have really good lives, but you know what I mean? Like the first time I've ever been in a position to be like, I'm gonna cook for them and take care of them, and it's been super fun. And they love it. So that's not what I'm going to talk about today. But I would share that with you because it's been like a really, really interesting journey regarding that. So in a moment, he's driving me wild down here, so I might put him up on my shoulder because he keeps biting my fingers. Anyway, today it's an appropriate day to talk about what I wanted to talk about, which is acceptance when it comes to mental health. And I'm going to include addiction in that, substance use, individuals who struggle with that, and any mental health in general. Now, I do want to remind you that anything I talk about here is from lived experience. I'm not a professional clinician or counselor, so I don't give advice, and I certainly am not going to suggest things, or but I do talk from lived experience. So anything that comes from me in this is from my own personal experience. So I struggle with OCD. I live with OCD. I've had appropriate treatment for OCD, but OCD is a lifelong illness that you learn to manage, and you can manage it very well with the right tools. So I live a pretty good life with it, and with anxiety, and then I also struggle with substance use. Alcohol in particular, I've recently discovered that I've been struggling with addiction tendencies to social media. And so I've had to put some harm reduction strategies in to help with that. So that's taken quite, the social media piece, I think, especially during the pandemic, has taken quite a toll on me. And so being able to set boundaries and limits has helped a ton. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So acceptance is the word of the day. It is the topic I wanted to talk about. And probably one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it is that I've come to my own understanding of acceptance in the last, probably I would say the last 6 to 8 months. Now, remember, I'm 44. I've had OCD since I was 8. I went into treatment when I was 20 something. So I'm kind of the example of someone who just continues to work on recovery. I don't mean that as like, oh, I'm the example. I just mean that as like, I'm someone that continues to learn and grow in recovery. And so if sometimes you think I don't have it figured out yet, and I'm, 25, well, here you go. You've got, your whole life to continue to work and grow and learn new things and learn things about yourself and yourself living with a mental illness, mental health challenges, addiction, substance use. You can continue to grow and you can continue to learn. And sometimes that comes in phases. Sometimes you plateau for a while. The great thing about being a human is that we have the opportunity to continue to change. I have probably learned the most about acceptance in the last 6 to 8 months because of the OCD peers groups that I run. We have several peers in our practice, and including myself, that run groups. And I started a group a while back called OCD and Acceptance, because acceptance is super hard with OCD. And because OCD is ego dystonic. And so accepting that it's a disorder is really difficult, because you know that the intrusive thoughts aren't real, but you can't stop thinking about them. So you have insight that something is off and you can't solve it logically. So the acceptance piece is very hard for OCD. And so I started running this group a while back. Oh my God, he's very hyper. He's been napping. And it just got really busy. People love that group. And eventually, though, I cycled out of it and I gave the group over to another one of our peers, Laura, and she's amazing. She runs groups as well. But that is one of our most popular groups because people struggle with acceptance. And I want to talk about that today. And I didn't even know that I struggled with acceptance until I started hearing other people's stories, until I started connecting with them and learning to understand what acceptance means. When we think about the word acceptance, right? Just in general, acceptance means acceptance, and there it is. But when in a mental health space, I'm going to tell you that it's very much talked about and peddled as, well, just accept, and your life will be better if you just accept it. Like it's some, something that we're forging towards. And once we hit acceptance, then there's the finish line. And life will be great with acceptance. For OCD and anxiety, that is not helpful, because those disorders are so black and white thinking on one extreme or the other. No, Sharky. Um, and so when we hear we hear about acceptance, oh, I accepted, and this is how I manage, the message comes across as acceptance equals butterflies and rainbows and fun and games, and everything is going to be okay. Right? That's a lot of times what the message that we receive. But I'm here to tell you today that what I've learned and what's really opened my eyes and helped me and helped a lot of the people who come to the group and people that I support with peer support is knowing that acceptance is hard. It's really difficult. It does not have to be this, oh, I'm, just what did I don't know how I've said it before, like I'm entering like the water slide into acceptance and it's going to be so fun, and once I hit the water it's like that was a great ride. No, it is painful. Acceptance is absolutely painful. You know why? Because growth is painful. Having to see reality sometimes is painful. Learning that this is the way it is painful. Now, this is not meant to be a pessimistic talk, so I would hope that if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, that girl needs to, she needs to stop being such a downer. No, I'm more of a realist when it comes to mental health. We tend to package mental health. Now, I know that Mental Health on the Mighty doesn't do this at all, so I'm grateful for that. Like I see articles that they post and discussions and stuff that they have, and it's so great to really see the realities of it on Mental Health on the Mighty. But when we're talking about mental health in a social media space, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's very much, first of all, a lot of it is because of stigma. A lot of it is we want to package mental health neatly. We want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with it and everything's going to be okay, right? Because we get stigmatized so much when it comes to violence, not being able to be trusted, all of the stereotypes that go along with having mental illness, that we're dangerous, I could go on and on, but I'm not. And so when we're talking about the social media wise, you typically, even people that are coming out as advocates, and I'm not picking on that, I'm just saying, it's very much this, I was in the depths, this is what happened, then I got treatment, and yay life. I accepted that this is what was happening. And y'all, we know that that is not the reality, right? I mean, it is if we're telling the story and it's overall, but living life with a brain disorder is hard. Accepting that having this life is hard. Accepting that I may be in a good place today and tomorrow or this month or this year, but it might not be the case is hard. And not only is it hard because of just the reality of symptoms, but it's hard because of the stigma, right? And so this is just something that I didn't know. And I may be the only one out there that just didn't know this, but I did think that I had accepted that I have OCD, okay, that I have horrible intrusive thoughts and that it can sometimes wreak havoc on my life for years at a time. Seriously, I just kind of pulled through a bout of OCD, in the last year, and that had wreaked havoc on me for 3 years. And I think I thought that I had done all of the work for acceptance, but acceptance is something that evolves. Acceptance is something that we have to choose. We have to choose it. And that's the major point I want to make today is when we are looking toward acceptance and sometimes afraid of it, right? I mean, lots of people don't want to accept that they are living with a brain disorder and that this is it. The Jack Nicholson, this is as good as it gets, right? Like a lot of people look at that as a dead end. That's not how acceptance works in my experience. Hopefully it's not in your experience. In fact, what is his name? Is it David Kessler? There's I may have mentioned this too on this broadcast before, probably because it had such a huge impact on me and continues to in all areas of life. When the pandemic first started, I was grieving very hard. I was struggling so hard. I hated everybody in the world. That's me. That's not true. But I just didn't know how to conceptualize what was going on. I didn't know what my role was. I didn't know how to process the emotional side of dealing with this pandemic. And I listened to a podcast with Brené Brown, and I believe it was David Kessler. I might be completely wrong. But they were talking about grief and trauma. And I was listening reluctantly because I sometimes just like dwelling in grief and not finding a way out. And I just did. I was in a really bad space at that point. And he said something that really changed me. And it was, you don't have to find the silver lining in a trauma. When people are dealing with trauma, which we know having a mental illness is a traumatic experience in so many areas, and you can fall into trauma in so many areas of the timeline of recovery, right? You don't have to find the silver lining when it comes to trauma. And I remember seeing that and like hearing that and sitting straight up and being like, wait, what? You're right. Like, as an advocate, yes, I chose to find the parts of my story that I want to talk about out loud and create advocacy around. That isn't necessary. That's not a silver lining. That is just choosing to create awareness around an illness at the time that had nothing on the internet about intrusive thoughts. So I chose to do that, right? But it wasn't a silver lining. In the pandemic, I did not want to find a silver lining. I did not like to be forced to find a silver lining, which was happening in the first few months. You would see people online going, we need to make the best of the situation and let's try to be positive. And I'm not saying that positivity is wrong, but not everybody was in that space. And so the acceptance piece, like I was battling that in my head. Like, I don't want to accept that this is the reality at this point. I don't want to accept that this is going to go on. And forced acceptance was creating grief, sadness, anger inside of me. So when I heard this podcast, it was like, you don't have to find a silver lining in trauma and grief. And I thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And then the second thing he said really changed everything for me. In fact, it changed the whole way I looked at my illness, especially regarding acceptance. He said, but inside of a trauma, you can experience little moments that bring you happiness, little moments that bring you connection. I may be saying this all wrong. If he ever watches this and he's like, girl, you just botched that. That's fine. But this is how I interpret it. And so that's my story. But you can find these little moments that may be worth remembering. And I remember how much that changed me. Thinking, I don't have to find a silver lining to this. And in fact, I don't think I will ever find a silver lining to the pandemic. If you did, awesome. But I don't want to, and I don't have to. And that's the beautiful thing about choice. But I can find moments. I can find little things that happen inside the pandemic that I can remember, that I can reflect on, that has changed me or that made me smile. And one of the things that really happened for me from that podcast, and really in the realm of acceptance, was understanding fully what that meant, what acceptance meant. Acceptance for me, even upon hearing that and then starting to kind of let that, marinate in everything that I was doing. Acceptance is being present. being aware. Now remember, I'm just doing this on my own lived experience. So you may have a whole different understanding of acceptance, and that's okay too. But I'm just telling you what it means to me. It meant being aware and making the choice to say, this is how it is for me right now. I mean, maybe that's mindfulness, maybe that's self-awareness, but I've never been able to understand it until until I realized that things pass. Things are continual and they change, and things don't stay the same if we can continue to make choices. And so as I dove into my illness, living and managing OCD daily, living and managing substance use daily, that and what acceptance is in looking at it as a way of being awareness and accepting what's going on right now really made me feel like I can enjoy, or not even enjoy, I can just be present. And when there's joy, I can experience that. When there's sadness, I can experience that. Knowing each of these things are going to change. When I wake up and I have a day that I know I'm in symptoms, instead of trying to claw my way out, which never works, just practicing, this is painful, but I'm going to accept that this is what it's like today. That doesn't mean the day has to be defeated, but in all honesty, I can actually be like, I'm emotionally defeated today. I don't have to strive for happiness. I don't have to strive to make this the best day ever. And I think a lot of what the pandemic did teach me is that every day was different. Every emotion was different as we were all trying to struggle with acceptance of what was going on in a world that was packed with uncertainty. So I think the message here today that I want to leave you with, I hope that this isn't disjointed. But this for me, this last year especially, has been such a period of growth in regards to what acceptance is. In regards to me wanting to understand acceptance for what it is, which is the epitome of acceptance. Acceptance is what is happening for me at the time, and I'm making the choice to honor that and not try to claw my way out. And I think that can be really scary for people. I think it can feel really scary when we're talking about symptoms, right? When we're talking about depression, when we're talking about living with mental illness, that can be really scary because of day after, and I've been there, y'all. I'm not just speaking off the cuff, like I don't know. I've been there. I've been at the rock bottom, almost didn't survive. So when I'm talking about acceptance, it can feel scary to say, oh, well, I just have to accept that this is life. No, that is not what I'm saying. For me, what that means is I'm going to accept what the day is going to bring me and get as comfortable as I can in that. Remembering what David Kessler said, you do not have to find the silver lining. You do not always have to find a sparkle in something, but it's sometimes the smaller moments that make things memorable or even tolerable. When I experience depression, and I do, I used to fight it because I was scared. I used to fight in a way that was, I have to have this feeling go away today. I can't, because of course I would project, I'm going to feel this way for the rest of my life, yada, yada, yada. And I had a peer support specialist tell me one time when I was about a depression, he said, look, you're doing everything you can. At that time, I was working with a psychiatrist. I was working on medication. I was applying my therapy techniques. A lot of times when we're suffering, we want it to end today. next hour, next minute, next week, next whatever. And he said, you're doing everything that you can. So why not get as comfortable as you can in feeling this way and just live day by day until this breaks? Whether that be because of medication, whether that be for therapy, we couldn't predict that. And what he was saying is, let's accept where you're at today. And then he was basically like, and I'm going to be here for you, which was amazing. Because that showed me that I didn't have to be in that space by myself, which was amazing. That was probably, when I look back, my first real understanding of full acceptance. And I've adopted that since. For example, I had an experience yesterday with my nonprofit. We did a live, I'm just going to be real here. We did a live video on OCD and addiction. And there were some things that happened during that live that were pretty, thank you, that were pretty triggering for someone who lives with substance use. Not the people on the panel. We have a great group of people, but I don't speak out often on addiction and substance use for this reason, because the stigma and shame around it is so prevalent. It is so awful that anything that you say that doesn't align with what people feel, or think or want everybody to be like, it is so, it turns into an emotional battlefield in like 2 seconds. And whoever, thinks that they know the most or has an experience where they've been hurt and they want everybody else to know it, and that if you don't do it their way, then you're an evil, awful person. That happens, and I usually get sucked into a shame cycle. I do. And so I got sucked into a shame cycle. So there you go today. And I woke up this morning. I went to bed knowing I was going to be, but I was like, no, it'll be okay. Maybe it won't be. And then I woke up this morning and I was there. I was there. And I thought to myself, how am I going to make it today? I thought, how am I going to do this video today to try to be positive, to try to have the silver lining. And then, as I had work to do and stuff all morning. And then I started thinking about what I was going to talk about. And then I thought, I'm just going to be real about my experience. And your experience may be different than mine, and that's okay. And we may have differing opinions on lived experience with addiction and substance use and OCD or mental illness, and that's okay too. But isn't that the epitome of acceptance, right? I'm in a shame cycle today. I accepted that that's where I was at. I had commitments, so I had to do those things anyway. And I just thought, I'll just feel what I feel. And it might be awful. And this video might go awful. But I'm going to do it anyway because I committed to show up. That was the epitome of acceptance for me. Knowing that even me sharing this with you might not be helpful, or you might disagree. But I think that the point is that we have a choice every day. We have a choice to wake up, evaluate where we're at, accept that as where we're at, and then do things that are based on our values-based life, regardless of what it feels like. And I think for mental health, it's even so important because of the stigma that we face, because of the, oh my God, the misconceptions that we face, the boxes we get put in, the pigeonholes that we get put in. It's even more important for those reasons. So I guess my question for you would be to ponder, would be, What does acceptance mean for you? And does it feel like a dead end? Does it feel like it would liberate you? Does it feel painful? Um, does it feel scary? All of those answers are correct. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It just has to be. And that's kind of what has set me free in regards to, instead of looking at that word and that action as what I think that it should be, or what I think other people think it should be, I decided to define it for myself. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. So I guess there's a question I just saw. Could support groups on OCD peers be helpful for a parent with a child with OCD? Yes, we do run we do a support group on Sunday for loved ones. And so if you're looking to learn more about maybe your child's theme of OCD, we also run themed groups. You are more than, I almost said more than willing. I didn't mean that. You're welcome to come to any group that you want to just learn more about, or if you want to meet people that have OCD to get a better understanding, absolutely. But I do believe that the loved one support group is on Sunday, ocdpeers.com. So that is my message today. Thank you for letting me be here. It wasn't tough to be here, but I just when you're stuck in a shame cycle, it's hard to think that anything that you have to say is meaningful because you're just in constant doubt about it. But it feels good to be able to. I'm practicing acceptance. It feels good to share on this topic because it is at this point one of my more passionate topics for OCD, because it's so difficult and people, I think, get stuck. They get stuck in thinking they should feel a certain way when they don't have to. Acceptance is personal. It is individual to all different areas of our life. And again, it's a choice. It's a choice. Some days you might be like, I ain't accepting this, and you just, I'm gonna cancel everything and I'm gonna sit on the couch and watch TV because I'm tired. That's okay too. You're accepting that you're tired and you need to do something. Other days it's, I don't feel well, but I got to get shit done. So I'm accepting I'm not going to feel well and I'm going to work my butt off all day. But I'm going to accept that this is my reality. That's really what it is to me, is just living in the moment of awareness, self-awareness, and honoring that. And not judging yourself for that. Ooh, don't we do that with mental health? Whew. When I'm in symptoms, ooh, I will ask my husband, and he will only answer me once. I'm like, I'm so sorry that I'm like this. Do you wish you married someone else? He's like, I'll answer you one time, but I'm not answering again, because that would be reassurance. So yeah. Anyway, my little one went to sleep, but I'm going to wake him up so he can say goodbye. Again, this is Oliver Baxter, 10 weeks old, newest member of my family. He is just the sweetest, just the most fun. It just feels, how when you have a dog or you have a pet, it just feels good to, it feels good to be loved. Um, so yeah, that's my message today. And thank you for being here and allowing me to share that with you. If you are interested in peer support or referrals for OCD, I'm at ChrissieHodges.com. So feel free to visit my webpage and find out more about me. My nonprofit is having a big OCD Game Changers retreat at the end of the month. It's virtual. But tickets are on sale right now. They're $50. We also have scholarships available. OCDGameChangers@gmail.com. If you're looking for a scholarship. For more information, go to OCDGameChangers.com under the events tab. It's on May 29th. It'll be really fun. It's just a support retreat. We're not featuring speakers or anything. We have one speaker on Friday night, but then Saturday, the day of, it's just straight support. Being able to meet people that have anxiety, have OCD, and feel a little bit less alone in kind of these uncertain times. So yeah, that's who I am, and I look forward to being back next month, which will be June. And until then, I hope that you have a wonderful mental health month, mental health awareness month. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I hope that you have a wonderful month. And I hope that you can practice acceptance and just know that whatever you're feeling and on whatever given day, you are enough. You're enough. And that's good enough. So we will see you back next month.